Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Zoom Into Wine. It's time for the show and your host, Ian Blackburn.
Let's get in the spirit of things. Watch this little Portuguese promotional video as we welcome our guest tonight.
Hello world, it's me, Tomorrow. I know you're much older than me, but I guess we've been getting along pretty well since the dawn of days. Always together through high and low tides. The breathtaking ways in which you show your love for me. Cheers to that. World, when you dress up in nature, spinning and merging shades, patterns and textures, it's out of this world. You go from the darkest black to the whitest white, from blue to green and all the colors in between. From fire to ice, from the highest mountains to the deepest cave. A taste of unattainable mastery in the tiniest details. You're a natural, and maybe it's time for us to reset and relearn to appreciate this journey. A new guidance. Go back to those times when our eyes in our presence were naive and happy enough to know how to simply live, visit, and treat you right. Be better guests in this amazing home. Because we must not forget that as we grow,
we must keep seeking a better destination for our planet. I miss you, and I shall see you again. Let's change today, and we will keep visiting tomorrow.
I wish I could say I paid a lot of money to play that video. I didn't, not at all. But I just think it's the perfect way to kind of set the mood tonight and welcome you all as we explore the world of port wine. And yes, I did shave my head. If you haven't seen me in a while, I'm still getting used to it myself. But it's spring, and I like to change my appearance as much as possible with few options remaining. I used to dye my long hair. Those of you that may know me a long time, I used to have an incredible head of hair that I abused. But some would say I took advantage of hair when I had it. So I just decided to change my look. And I'm also really enjoying the morning workouts now and come in early. And it's freezing cold walking in here with a wet head, so just works out really well. But welcome to Zoom Into Wine. My name is Ian Blackburn, and I am a wine educator and host here in downtown Los Angeles. And we have pivoted over here to a Zoom for the long term, and we hope that you guys will join us often. And we've got a really fun event tonight. We're talking about some of my favorite wines, and we're really getting together some amazing guests to talk all things about wine and life and how it parallels each other and the concept of doing what we love. And a few of my friends are going to be on this Zoom a little bit later to talk about a movie project that they started to pull together about 7 years ago. And tonight it premieres at the Sonoma International Film Festival. So we'll have a couple of the stars of the film on, and the producer, and it's a movie film. It's a film made for people that love wine. It's called A Perfect Vintage, and we parallel the conversation tonight talking about vintage port. So without much further ado, because we have a lot of ground to cover, I want to thank you for joining us. First of all, far and wide, we've got Barbara up in Sonoma. We've got guests in Pasadena, and Hector, are you Glendale-ish right now? What? I can't remember where home is.
Mount Washington, down in the LA area.
And Terry and your team out there in, is it West Covina, Hacienda Heights? Is that right, Terry?
Yeah, Hacienda Heights.
Cool. Hi, Lee Harrison. Good to see you. Hi, Sharon. Thank you for joining us. Kent is here tonight from Ohio. How cool is that?
Where in Ohio?
We're just outside of Columbus in Granville, Ohio.
I know that. So I know Granville. I'm from Bay Village, outside of Cleveland.
Cleveland.
We have a place.
Sawyer.
We have a place on the lake as well, so
Oh,
know
you
that.
do?
Place. Yep.
We'll have to be friends.
There you go. If you like wine, we're in.
I'll bring the wine. I'll share. So, hey, Chris, I thought you were on your way to Oregon.
I am in Oregon. It is correct. Yes.
Oh no, we're gonna do right now. Hey, Ian, I have a question for you, Ian.
You don't have to yell at me, though. You don't have to yell at me.
Are we seeing the film tonight, or how do we see the film?
Well, we'll get you there. There's going to be some information passed on, and maybe even a little special code.
A code. Okay.
There will be. We just finished an event ourselves. We started breaking in Tim Morris, and we will. I'll break in less rudely later with information. We'll put it in the chat, a code and all the rest to see the film. So thank you.
I love secret codes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We got a couple of people we're going to be spotlighting tonight, but in the spirit of the format of our evening, let's go ahead and get a little port wine going on first of all, and then we'll merge our conversations. We'll merge our conversations with the topicality of the film, because I think a lot of people are tuning in to also learn about the film tonight, and that's going to be awesome.
Yes.
So let me do this, and then I'm going to just go right into a quick PowerPoint to get us up to speed on port wine. And I'm going to break us back and introduce everybody, because I think we'll be at full strength with the team coming over from what was the red carpet for the film festival. They're coming into the Zoom kind of coming in hot. So let's break into our PowerPoint and see how that's looking. I did show this beautiful commercial. Portugal, I think, makes the best tourist commercials ever. So if you'll look around, you'll find a few of those. Event tonight. So tonight it's called Portugal Ruby versus Tawny, but really what we're talking about is vintage 2003 Quinta de Cristo versus O2 Colheita, and just the idea of that. And we're going to go right through that topic and then blend the conversation with this beautiful film that's opening up tonight. Troy Christensen, friend of ours, and been a attendee to many a wine tasting with us. Chris, of course, is also featured in the film, along with Timothy, and we want to thank everybody for joining us on this beautiful occasion with some great topicality, a ton to cover. So let me get into it. Here we go. Let's make sure you are. All right. So here is Portugal, and of course we're right on the border with Spain. You got this where all your Albarino comes from, right there, and the Douro Valley is right inside here along this Douro River. Some of the most extreme growing conditions, and also one of the most iconic and important origins of wine. Did you know that Porto and port wine was the very first delineated wine region in the world? Before Burgundy, before anybody else, the king of Portugal said, if it's going to be called port wine, and it's going to be made right inside this boundary, and that really kind of set the world stage for understanding place and concept. And of course, what just happened there? I'm trying to get rid of my little markers, which usually go away with a click, and not tonight. So King of Portugal delineated this wine region, and it is a magical place. We are talking about a style of wine. Port is a style. It's a fortified wine, and they break it down into these 4 categories: ruby, tawny, white, and rosé. Tonight we're going to be talking about a ruby and a tawny style. Now, again, that history is really important here. 1678, that's when wine really gets flowing into England. Of course, the English were not even talking to the French at this point in time. So you'll find a lot of English names on the outside of these bottles because they got involved in the port trade, Taylors and Colburns and others. And it's a very much an international product, exported all over the world. A great timeline. I will provide this PowerPoint, by the way, which is borrowed in many ways off the internet. So it's not mine. I'm just re-gifting it to the world tonight in a thank you email after our presentation tonight. I always send out the video if it comes back to me on a timely basis, and the PowerPoint, and a number of other things like discounts on some special wines that we might be talking about tonight. So that's called our gift bag. I'll be sending that out after our presentation tonight. But the red wine, the wines of Portugal are made from these red grape varieties right here. And most of us have heard of Touriga Nacional, Tinto Ruiz. And some of these are, have another name in another country. But really, these grape varieties take on their own personality in Portugal, and it's a really hot and rugged place. And I think it's an awesome thing to note, the history of wine and its parallels to this place, and how it was established in some of the most amazing vineyards with rock and stone and these terraces and these extremes. And look at some of the things that we're talking about here. These terraces, they're literally blasted and pounded and chiseled to create these iconic vineyard sites. I'm sure it wasn't the easiest commitment to make, and I'm sure some population paid dearly for building these places in really tough times, but they knew what they had here was a magical place to grow grapes. And so when we talk about fortified wines or port wines, they are fortified. They will have higher alcohols in general. The wines that we're tasting tonight are between 19.5 and 20%. These wines do ferment naturally up until they're about 9, 10, 11, 12% alcohol. And then the rest is additional fortification. This is kind of the home of foot treading. They always believe that the foot is the softest way to extract the color and the character of these thick-skinned grape varieties. And you're going to get a lot of that smell and persistence of the place in every glass of wine, especially when it ages. The youthful wines are very fruit-oriented, and over time, you can't get away from that schist and that different type of slate and minerality that you're going to get in the mountains and hills of the Douro. There's our foot treading. Quite a bit. Oh, by the way, the Portuguese model has always been about creating wines that have kind of an ability to be naturally resold. So they love to create wines that don't have vintages, and make wines that restaurants can order one at a time. Customers may buy one bottle a year, but they can depend on the brand. So they really kind of built their business around that. But the old school ports were about vintage ports, and a lot of people wanted to wait to buy them until they were ready to drink, which is a terrible business model. And but that's where the Portuguese found themselves, and it almost bankrupted the business. So they started to create these non-vintage blends, late bottle vintaging, giving it more oak time, things like that, and even preparing the wine for drinking, because old school port used to come really dirty in the bottle, and you had to decant it and clean it up in order to drink it. It was a lot of work, a big commitment. So the Portuguese really kind of cleaned up the act a little bit and created wines that have a little bit of that natural salesmanship about them. So tonight I sent out 2 wines, and quite honestly, I think we may have sent them out in different moments. I just want to make sure everybody's got the same wine in the same glass. Go ahead, and if you've got 2 glasses, look at them, because our Colheita is basically oak barrel aged, and it's got that tawny color or loss of color, and the ruby is just pretty much dark as wine can get. And so when we talk about the Quinta de Crasto 2003, now at 17, 18 years of age, it's coming into its prime time. And so we're going to take a look at that wine here in a minute. Here's a look at the region that it's grown on and those terraced hillsides looking down at the river. The river is not only beautiful to look at, but this is how the wine goes from these remote hillsides all the way out towards the ocean, and they deliver them on these skinny little boats that it's kind of a dangerous journey. In fact, some of the river can get a little dodgy at certain times of the year, and so these boats really had to carry the port barrels carefully, and they're not like big huge barges. They're teeny little boats that carry a small handful of the wood barrels down into the town of Oporto, where the wine is bottled in Oporto. Here's a look at Quinta do Crasto and some of those indigenous varieties. Another great look from the hillsides. Look up at the estate. Goes back to the origins of the category in the 1600s. That's when Quinta do Crasto was first founded and mentioned. Some great old photos, just showing you the history. And a little bit of a ownership change over time, but all these things are iconicized throughout the state. This marble or granite statue talking about that. The current ownership, family owned and operated. This is a really small brand. I, by the way, used to work for 10 years. I worked for Co-Brand and represented Taylor and Fonseca, and they've continued to expand their empire. In fact, the Crone port tonight, they've recently purchased the brand Crone. But I could have picked any port I wanted in the world. I love talking about port wine, and to find a good supply at a good price of an older bottle of port wine is kind of, the important part here. I wanted to find something that had a little bit of value to it, and 03 Quinta do Crasto certainly has that. Small producer, but super state-of-the-art, beautiful winemaking facility. And this is why these wines just are phenomenal, because they have invested in the right type of equipment to make really refined wines. And then Crone will represent our Colheita port tonight, 02. And this wine, I believe on the back of the bottle says that it was bottled, if I'm recalling 2017. Yes, 2017. So this was in wood from 2002 until 2017, fully oxidized. The angel share evaporation took away some of the quantity, but it intensifies the character. Now, alcohol also evaporates at the same rate as the liquid, so the alcohols remain the same, but the flavors change radically, and we go from a fruit-driven style to more of an aged character style. Oak barrel oxidation, nutty is kind of where you're going. And you can really lose yourself in the nose of the 02, and a totally different style for potentially a very similar moment, but just maybe a choice or preference of which one you might like tonight. But the Crone family was also founded in the 1800s, and these guys have been specializing in tawny ports. Remember that boat I was talking about? That's what they look like right there. This is it. And these guys are stacking those barrels carefully, because that boat is going to rock through that river, and some of the rapid type of characteristics of that river in certain portions. But here's some. This is how they used to brand the barrel. They probably made the barrels right there. There's stories in this, over history of some of the English people having to get smuggled out of Portugal during certain points in history, and they'd literally hide themselves in barrels and be smuggled out of the country. So really an amazing history here in wine that parallels all activities of the world. Here's the Crone facility, and as I told you, the co-brand slash partnership with Taylor and Fonseca, which is actually Taylor and Flaggate partnership, purchased Krone, and that's because they are a tawny house, and tawnies have been in short supply. So the amount of tawny that's been available is getting smaller and smaller as the popularity of the category, and you just can't go and make 20-year-old wine fast enough. And so they started to acquire these other houses. Also, the fact is the Portuguese wine market is getting smaller worldwide, not larger. So yeah, I saw a question in the chat box. Are those same boats used today? Well, they are a little bit fancier, but some producers still do bring it down. It is often done by car now too. There are roads that lead them all the way down to Oporto, and it's a lot safer. But I'm sure some people do it a little bit out of ceremonial purposes to bring it down in those little skippers. So here's our Krone 02, a couple nice scores. And that is our PowerPoint. I want to start tasting these wines with you guys. I'm going to take our guests, our hosts. Chris, you've got the wines with you up in Portugal. And I want to find everyone that's involved in the movie tonight.
I do have and mine were in the right order. I will say that.
Okay.
I do have the tawny first. It's number 1 for me, so that's the one.
All right.
And the colors do show. I mean, you can tell the difference between the two. And I mean, I think we'll go into tawny, but I mean, it's always a little bit lighter in color. It's kind of it looks like a coconut color, like the outside of a coconut. It's a little bit more of a brownie color than red, for sure.
I'm looking around. Timothy, are any of our other friends joining us anytime soon? Do you know if Chris?
Troy should be on. I think he's just muted.
I'm here.
Here you go.
I'm here. Yeah.
Hey, Troy.
Hi.
I gotta reduce your Mr. Microphone voice there. I don't control that. Maybe you're overly amplified.
I'll speak a little softer.
Whoa.
What are you wearing, Ian?
You are coming in hot, man. You are. I'm backing up for the computer. It's so in my face. Well, let's get into the ports. I think a lot of you guys have the glass. I'm going to start with the tawny, and then we'll go to the ruby next. Cheers, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. Happy spring. Such a beautiful time here in Los Angeles. A beautiful couple of days, and it seems like 21 is getting better every day. Let's smell. I want you guys to notice, obviously the alcohols here are fortified, so we're approximately 20%, and you can really pick up on some of that heat. As you look down into that glass, you can see the, let me see if I can do that for Barbara. See that brownie color that Chris was talking about? I like that coconut shell brown. It's kind of got like a rusty brown orange color, which is as you would expect of a wine sitting in barrel for that period of time. And these are old barrels, about as old as they could get. In fact, I think that they use them until they implode. They really don't want any wood character on the wines. They just want oxidation, slow, consistent oxidation.
Ian, I'm sure you've been over there many times, but it's kind of fun when you go into Oporto to a big house, that produces a lot of tawny, and you see the coopers there, and they're shaving off the insides of these poor pieces of wood that have been pretty much sitting there with wine soaking against them for so long, and they're just trying to give them new birth, but they're old pieces of wood. But they're going to put them back together. They're going to make a pretty amazing barrel, and it's going to sit there for another 40 years.
Yeah, and I actually made it my first time to Portugal about 2 years ago.
What?
Yeah, I've never been there before. And I love to travel. I tried to take a group there years ago, but I was actually invited to be a wine judge in a competition. And it was a really fun and exciting competition in the Douro Valley. And I was representing America. So it was kind of cool. There was somebody there from Japan and Australia. And I don't know how they found me, but...
I've done that once before too. It was quite good. I felt very special.
It's fun, and I just fell in love with the country. I mean, I think any of us that went there would really appreciate the architecture, the scenery, the value of the U.S. dollar in Portugal, and there's some very interesting expat packages that you might want to look into. Like if you buy a home in Portugal, spend about $500,000 on the home, you become an EU citizen and you get healthcare for life. So just think about that as an option. I can't even find a home that's more than 800 square feet in LA for $1 million anymore. So it's getting crazy here.
If I need to be a travel agent too, people in Portugal are super nice people. And the fact is, it seems so much like California there. I feel so acquainted with everyone, and everyone smiles a lot, and they're very helpful. So please go visit Portugal because it's an amazing country, one of my favorite countries in the world. And one of the other things, just to add on to something that Ian was saying, where he showed us the varieties of grapes that are in these bottles, in these blends, or could be used in these blends. Right. Portugal, I believe, is number 3 in the world for the most grape varieties planted in their country. Number 1 is by far Italy, because they just went and took over countries and stole their grapes and put them wherever they wanted them. Number 2 would be France, and number 3, if I'm not mistaken, is Portugal. They have so many great grape varieties. So this is just a tidbit. I mean, still wines are amazing there too.
Yeah.
Well, that's really the future for them too. I mean, the port wine market is kind of an antique, and it's celebrated at special moments. But even in the Douro, it's all about the dry wines becoming more like Bordeaux and taking on that kind of profile. So yeah, these almost all the port houses started to make dry to survive.
And the prices of the still wines are incredibly low. One of the things, what?
I have at least a dozen Portuguese dry wines on our website, and/or some of the classics like Vinho Verde. I think is really had a resurgence, especially during COVID. It is such a great value. You can drink it all day long. It's got 8% alcohol, and it's like breakfast.
Pretty much breakfast juice. Yeah. Sure.
The other thing, this is not anything to do with the wine industry, but one of the things I found in Portugal is that their technology is advanced in comparison to the rest of the EU because they started later. Like when you're looking for a Wi-Fi signal in Italy, it's very frustrating. Portugal is completely locked in, coming in hot, as you say.
Yeah, I'm always blown away by the Portuguese. First of all, they speak freaking Portuguese. Have you ever heard them speak Portuguese?
You don't speak Portuguese?
Oh my God, I could barely speak English. Portuguese is like, English times pi. It is crazy. It goes off the chart, and then they most of the Portuguese have a home in Portugal and a freaking home in Brazil. Yeah. They live on 2 continents, and the Portuguese must have been freaking savage because they control the entire coastline, and then they have islands that they still manage to keep through hundreds of years. I'm just imagining the old Portuguese soldiers just being ruthless and dangerous because nobody wanted to touch their shit.
Yeah, and once again, it's a small country, you guys. I mean, it's just kind of small versus everything else that's really big. So it's just such a unique place. So if you ever get the chance to go over there, go there. And if you have a chance to spend over $500,000 and get free Medicare for the rest of your life, that's awesome.
Troy, did you get some wine? Nice. All right, cool. David K.
And it's delicious.
Excellent.
Speaking very quietly. They're both exquisite.
I don't know how you got so mic'd up, man, but it sounds like the Thunderdome over here when you speak.
It must be these earbuds that I have. They're super duper. Or I have a David K voice.
That's what it takes, David K. You know David, Troy?
Oh, yeah, very well.
Very well, yes. As a matter of fact, David and Dana are the ones who brought me to the first tasting I did with you downtown.
Holy shit! I had no idea. That's amazing.
Yeah, Troy was at the big Christmas bash you hosted. We hosted here in the house.
Absolutely, and there was another one. I forget what it was, but there was a beautiful tasting that you did presentation with a couple of full tables of folks down your downtown LA thing. So, yeah, I remember you because you were doing all the speaking, so I've known you for years, Ian. You didn't even know it.
Well, I'll tell you a story later too, because I got another one, but it probably would bore everybody else. But me and you got to talk about it. I am hoping to get some tasting notes from some of you guys. I want to hear what you guys smell in this 2002 Colheita. Now, I also wanted to expand a little bit on the category because I think some of you may have never even tasted a Colheita before. Colheita is one of my favorite wines of the Douro Valley, and I was kind of heading down the lane of explaining how Portuguese like to make wines that they can sell again and again and again. They're non-vintage. They have a fun name. They're easy to sell because they don't sell a lot of wine at one time. Customers tend to buy their wines 1, 2, 3 bottles at a time. And so when they release a wine that's from a singular vintage or a singular vineyard, it becomes a very difficult sell. Everybody wants to taste it again, and the concept of sampling and being able to try it, they wanted something more trustworthy. So Colheitas kind of became less important to the Portuguese, and I think that was probably a mistake because this is like such a great wine, and in a time when the Portuguese market's getting smaller, if they made more exciting wines like this might be what would stimulate the category. So I really think that these single vintage aged tawny wines are really compelling, and quite frankly, they got it all wrong because you go to the store and you're going to buy a 10-year, or 20-year, or 30-year, or 40-year tawny. Those wines are more expensive than the Colheitas. And so here we're looking at a bottle of wine that I think is selling in the $30 to $40 range on our website. And a 20-year tawny is easily $45 now and going up. And so I think Taylor 20 is like $50, $60. So this is a much more elegant style. Even if the winemakers were here from Portugal, I would say this to their face because I really believe this, and I've been saying it for years. Maybe I'm part of the problem, but I really love to find a Colheita that has this singular message. It's from the vintage. It may even be from a single barrel. That's how they made these wines, one barrel at a time. They're just real singular expressions, and I'd love to hear from anyone that has a concept and a notion that they're smelling, feeling, tasting in the nose of this wine.
Well, I mean, I think that it's got fruit. I mean, that's the first thing because, you think about these kinds of wines that aren't really, they've been in barrel for a long time and you think it just gets deprived of fruit, and I don't feel that way at all. I feel there's a lot of plum, there's a little bit of cherry in there, but it also has a kind of almost like a buttered pecan kind of thing going on it, which I really, really enjoy. I like buttered pecans, and I will take a buttered pecan. If anyone has one in their hand, I will eat it because it's just good. But there's a spice to it too. There's a real interesting thing that's drawing you into it. And I am the biggest fan of these styles of wine. When I used to write for the San Francisco Chronicle, 20 years ago, I used to do a lot of stuff on fortified wines, and Portugal was my biggest deal. I mean, in fact, my son Rupert is named after Rupert Symington because Rupert Symington's a cool guy, and I like
the line from the movie.
I know, and it's just the right thing, you know, that you just name him that, and then you go over there, and Rupert says, "How's your son doing? When's he going to come work for me?" That's exactly what you meant with that name, is to have him go, my son, go work in Portugal. He's only 11 right now, so maybe he can stomp on some grapes, but that's about it right now. But I think that the whole process of making these kinds of tawnies, and especially putting a vintage on them, is the most important thing that to really clarify here, is that this is actually a vintage, and how that really works, because most of them are 10s, 20s, 30s, and 40-year-olds. And that's because they're aged like that, and that's what they're done, and they're going to be bottled at some point and then released. They're a little bit more like Madeiras, when we really get into it. But I mean, when you put an actual, and I think you have a really great point there, Ian, about putting a vintage on something means a lot, because it really does have a clarity to it. I think that the other thing about Tawny that really makes me I think the biggest selling point of Tawny is, unlike vintage ports, when you put it, you're told, okay, so this is a great vintage, you got to put this away for 10 years, and okay, so you do it, and then you break it open, and it lasts for how long once you open it? Like maybe 2 weeks. This stuff was made to endure, and that's the most important thing, and that's why you get way more for the money with a Tawny port, if you ask me, just because you can sip on it for 6 months to, you know, maybe almost up to a year, and it's still going to be good after you pop that cork. So, I mean, I think there's some real big elements about Tawny that make it so special. I think that's one of the best stories I ever wrote for the San Francisco Chronicle, is about the beauties of Tawny port. And you could look me up sometime and read that. And I've read it a few times. I think it was pretty damn good 20 years ago. But you know, I think that the thing is that you really have a very interesting point there, because this is a vintage, and you rarely see vintages on Tawnies. And that's the most important thing about this this tasting and what you brought to us here.
Well, I'm glad you like it. I think that we have a number of wine personalities on the Zoom tonight. Winemaker from Santa Barbara, Peter Work, is on our Zoom tonight from Ampelos, and he made some nice tasting notes: nutty, blackberry, nutmeg, caramel. Those are keys, and I agree with you there, Peter. Barbara, what do you think of Colheitas? Are you a fan of Colheita?
It would be. I remember, I don't have the ports.
I know, but do you like the category? Do you like?
Oh yeah.
I wanted to include you.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
You betcha. Hector, what do you think, dude? I know you've got the wines.
Amazing. I have a question though.
Yeah.
When you talk about fortified,
yes.
What do you fortified it with?
Good.
And at what level does it become, you know, that 20%? Is that the? Can you expand on that a little bit?
Sure. So basically, they're looking to add enough brandy spirit to make these wines really age-worthy, bulletproof, and also satisfying and hitting the marks of the category. There are rules for the category. Every year when, as Chris was mentioning, the 10, 20, 30, 40 concept for tawnies, they have to be submitted to the government and approved. And really what a 10-year tawny could be is like a little bit of 5, a little bit of 8, a little bit of 14, a little bit of 25. Make it taste like it's 10 years old. Taste like it's 10 years old. And that's the category, 10, 20, 30, 40. They sell them that way. They market them around the world that way. And they can use now the brandy spirit that they make. They used to have to buy that brandy spirit from the Portuguese government. And that was actually a way of kind of moderating the taxation too, I think, on the product. But now you can actually oversee your own brandy production if you really want to do it. It's a lot of work, but some people believe that they can control the brandy and make it even better. They can elevate their product. And I think that's why, you know, those are some of the things that the Portuguese are trying to do to elevate the category again and bring new life to it, is to improve it and to really take it into their own. Timothy, what do you think of the Colheita?
It's glorious. It's beautifully aged. It has sort of spice cake, the buttered pecans, those layers of like really great of Christmas. That flavor. This sort of it's with nutmeg and cinnamon and candied fruit, and it's glorious. Great texture. And it has those aged oxidative notes that it just add another layer and dimension to the wine. That I think we're, as you say, where it's a shortage of tawny, and sort of losing that view of what port is, and sort of in more modern winemaking. But it has just glorious layers of flavor and texture.
Timothy's a winemaker and featured in the film, and he makes wine on How Mountain. And I think it's kind of interesting to compare this still a little bit to How Mountain because of this thing is like, if you just back away for a second and focus on the granite characteristics in the nose of this wine, this is, you want a fun way to describe this wine? Granitic. It is. Yep. This is like you're taking stones and pounding them together, and you can really smell that, flint, and name a rock, it's in there.
It's great minerality, great all of those things. Absolutely.
I think it's got a little touch of I've never thought of this before, but if you made banana bread with plantains, that would be interesting. And this has such a plantain kind of layer to it with this. Someone mentioned the nutmeg in here too, and I mean it kind of makes me want to drink this in Jamaica, but I don't know why. But it just feels right. Maybe with
going
out in the beaches, but I just feel like there's something here about that plantain thing, because you don't really hear about plantains that often. I've never thought about making banana bread with plantains, but it could happen.
What's that tableside dish with the fired plantain?
Baked Alaska.
Yeah.
Or Bananas Foster.
Bananas Foster.
Oh, yeah, that's it. That's it. You're right.
Yeah. And this would be great with a dessert like that.
Yeah.
But that's the problem. Is I think a lot of people cut dessert out at dinners and meals and restaurants, and they're either going to have a dessert or a dessert wine. The cheese cart kind of went out of fashion. This wine loves cheese. This wine loves just, sitting around the fireplace with a family for 4 hours and having a long chat. This wine loves the conversation after a meal. And you could that's when they used to break these out. And it was part of a show too. Now I got a really fun little quick story. I'm working at Patina Restaurant, 1992, and Marvin Shankin came in. I can't remember what vintage he showed up with, but it was maybe 1917, 1919, something like that. It was just ancient. I'm all of, 24 years of age. I've got enough, tableside manner to know that I'm about to learn some valuable lessons. Luckily, we had this wonderful Garadon we could bring over to the table to help open this bottle. And I take this very expensive corkscrew that you sink in the thread first, and then you put down the sheath, and you slowly crank the cork out. And this was before the beautiful wine opener that's now available. What is that one called? We'll give it a little plug. The thing is absolutely magic.
You mean the Durant?
Durand, thank you. The Durand is like the lifesaver. We didn't have those back then.
The best.
Yeah, but this one was made for old vintage wines, and you spun it around. Well, as I'm putting the corkscrew in there and I'm applying a little pressure, the bottle is hissing, it's cracking, and I'm watching the neck of this bottle start to bleed because the crack is getting bigger, and so I had to make a soft exit quickly, and I turn around, and I worked for a man named Thomas Johnson, who famously could just melt glass with his stare, and I looked at him, and he told me to get back into the kitchen, and I had to go see Joachim, and Joachim loved to use the F-bomb and yelled at me in a million ways in German, And then he grabbed port tongs. That's where the name comes from. He had them. No one taught me how to use port tongs before, but he threw them on the fire, and they came out, and they literally did it old school style with a hot metal collar. They put it on the bottle, and then they took a towel and broke the top of the bottle off. You don't pull the cork out of a 100-year-old bottle. You break the neck off. And that was just an amazing thing to be a part of. But I also lost about 5 pounds of sweat that night. It was, whew, man, that was tough. That was tough.
That's a great story.
That's awesome. I mean, not awesome, but it's you told it well.
What was the wine?
It was an old vintage port from the early 1900s, and we also ran it through a cheesecloth, which I'd never even seen cheesecloth up until that point. I don't know where that came from in the restaurant.
That's handy. That's handy to know, actually. If anyone learns anything tonight, besides the fact that these two wines are awesome, and you have to watch this movie, the cheesecloth thing is totally right on.
Yeah.
What about the port tongs? Do you have some port tongs around now?
Yeah. And there's a gentleman here in Los Angeles who's a really big promoter of port, and he opens up with port tongs all the time, and so it's a really nice show. And if you go to Spain or Portugal, it's really common to have that type of tableside service. So it's another good reason to go out to a nice restaurant in Portugal or in Spain and order an older bottle of wine, because A, they have them, and B, they know how to do the service.
Wow.
All right, so we got the topic covered, right? Tawny versus Colheita, and we're gonna move into our Ruby now, the 03. Let's talk for a second about vintage port. Now, the history of port wine goes way back to the 1600s, but they don't declare vintages every year. Vintage is only declared when the port houses vote unanimously to make it a vintage. And I think it's like the major port houses. I don't think every port house gets a vote, but the major port houses vote on that and they declare it. Up until recently, and I'm not sure if anyone knows this, I'd love to hear, but up until recently, there wasn't a decade with more than 3 declared vintages. And that's basically because they have the wine that they're making for this year, the wine they made from the year before, and the wine they made from the year before that, and they could always pick which one was going to be the best. And it's not just about the best of a 3-year vintage, but they had to, or a 3-year window, but they had to pick a vintage that would live and prove their legacy. That's what a vintage wine is about. It's about a winemaker saying, hey, this is good enough that I'm going to bottle this for the next generation, because they're making these for a 20-year, not to touch until they're 20 years old, vintage port. Now, there's a difference between having a vintage on the label and an actual declared vintage port. There's a lot of port that has a vintage on it, and some of them, what they do when they don't declare the vintage is they'll make what's called a single quinta wine, a wine from their best vineyard, and they can make that every year. So if you see a house like Taylor, they'll make Quinta de Vergeles, and that's one of their top vineyard designations, and they'll only make that in non-declared years. In declared years, they take all their best wine and blend it together to make one monster wine for the marketplace, and they sell it for a lot more money, or that's the intention. That's why they don't do it every year too. They don't want to flood the market with vintages, and they want to make them special. And the English love their port wine, but their current vintage that they're drinking is like 1961. And that's a problem for the Portuguese, because that is some old wine. And again, you just can't turn that engine on and say, oh, let's make some for 50 years from now. Maybe it could be a successful model for someone, but the wealth factor that would require is crazy. So let's take a look at the 03. Worldwide, 03 was a freaking hot vintage. And in Portugal, they know how to handle that. They're all about hot vintage. And these thick-skinned grapes, look at how purple this thing is. 17 years of age, still will stain the glass. See, Barbara? Look at that. And it's got this glorious, ripe, rich nose. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I've had the chance to be over there during the vintage. It was actually the vintage that the Symingtons won number one in the Wine Spectator for the Dows. And so I was there with Rupert and his brother at Dow's, and we did like 5 days there. And it was when they were picking. I'd never really been there when they're picking and smashing. And I got in one of the tanks, and I was I was barefoot crushing the grapes and all that stuff at one of the quintas, and it was awesome with the locals too, where we were all hanging on to each other, dancing around, and it was awesome. But it was really just tasting the grapes. It was really what I got. The Douro, like Ian was saying, it's like the most dramatic place I've ever been in my life, with as far as who the hell would have ever designed these vineyards and put them onto these mountains? I have no idea. It's impossible, and you never would have done it today. And you see some of the ancient ghost ones back there. They're just kind of overgrown, but you're like, oh, I understand that you just need to rest after being beaten to death forever, but the grapes themselves are so interesting. They just taste so different than Cabernet Sauvignon or Zinfandel or Cabernet Franc or Pinot Noir or all these things. They're just different. And you taste them, and you taste the skins, and you chew on the skins. That's what I'm getting here. It's almost like the outside of a black fig. It's not, you're not getting the fruit inside, you're getting the outside, and you're kind of chewing on it. And it's like, that's what it's about. It's about these vibrant grapes that we don't know enough about, but we could never want to stop learning about them. And I feel like this really exemplifies that. On the nose, there's a very interesting note that really reminded me of an heirloom tomato right off the top. But it's more like a Cherokee, it's like one of those kinds of specialty heirlooms that really kind of goes. And that's an interesting kind of a thing that just based on that vineyard, and it gives you these kinds of qualities. It's almost like herbal accents it's almost like a natural herbal accent to it. But I feel like the grapes are really showing in here, and especially when you put it in your mouth, it doesn't taste anything like that. It's got a lot of fruit in there, and it's almost exotic kinds of red fruits, and that fig, that's what I'm saying there, is like there's almost like the base of a nectarine, almost like you and I talk about, Ian, with Zinfandel, where you find an old vine Zinfandel and you didn't cut off the middle of the near the pit because you wanted that stringy stuff, and it's good. And it's got it right here. I mean, there's a lot of structure to it. There's a lot of character to it, and it has that signature Douro to it, and that's what I love so much about it.
It's like a jelly donut with a stone around it.
Yeah, exactly.
So interesting, because before you even said that, as I was tasting, I found my mouth chewing. It just wanted to do that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. It takes my saliva gland to 11. It's immediately going crazy, but I'm in a really good way. Like, just, it is almost sexual. It's really
pretty much, yeah.
Big mouthful experience. Pia, what do you think of that wine? You tasting that with us, or are you drinking someone else's wine tonight?
No, I'm tasting this one.
Okay, good. I love the glass. That's how you drink port.
I know. I think
12 ounces at a time, Pia.
Got the bottle, so.
It's gonna be a good night at Pia's place.
Yeah.
Steven, how are you doing there, buddy?
All right, sorry about that. I had to unclick my mute button. Well, Ian, as you know, I've been a long time port fan, and I really think it's one of the great wines that's underappreciated. And I don't know if folks have noticed, but during this tasting, I'm also eating something. And I'm eating a kind of a rich soup that I made. And I think that's something that people we always talk about port as a wine for like a dessert, but I also think if you have a rich food, you can really enjoy a port wine with that. And so that's what I'm doing.
Nice. Well,
You
yeah.
know, I've had many experiences with great dinners done 100% with ports, and it can be done. You just have to go that next step. And I think the fact that you've got a great soup there. I mean, I think port is one of the greatest things ever in cold climate conditions, especially as we're not all the way to spring yet, and there's still some very cold areas. Like I'm up here in Oregon right now, and it's cold. Down when I left Sonoma County this afternoon where I live, it was pretty warm. It was nice. And I got up here and I brought bundled jackets, and I kind of want some soup like that too. I mean, it just sounds right. After I finish this and finish off the glass with a fine soup, that sounds fantastic.
Well, if you're gonna like gnaw on a big like carcass or something, this would be the type of wine you could do that with. This is definitely beast mode type of wine, and certainly kind of sets the mood for big things. I really, and in the term of vintage port, this wine is really good too, by the way. This is like, there are a lot of famous wines from famous declared vintages. I was selling wine in the 1990s, and when the 94 vintage came out, that took like port wine to like an unbelievable level. And in fact, port prices actually climbed. And if you look over the last 10 years, port wine prices have actually declined in a strangest way that just shows you how kind of opposite the port market is. There's a better word for that. But things are in decline in the port wine market. The currency, the economy there, the demand is just not there. So and a lot of the big English wine banks, the English wine clubs invest, and they buy a literal shit ton of these wines, and it's an investment, and they plan on selling these wines at larger and larger prices over time, but eventually they have to sell them no matter what dollar they're going to get for them. And so you will find some older vintage ports coming onto the market and kind of resetting the marketplace at a constant level. There are occasional wines that still go up in value, but you probably shop around and find a number of great vintage wines for less than they were released at. I think that's where we're at with the 03 Quinta de Cristo. I purchased this from the importer, from their library, and I think I'm buying it at the same price that I could buy the current 2017, I think is a declared vintage. So it's a challenge for the port market. But it's also a win for us if you like dessert wines. If you like this wine, this is a wine that you could buy today and celebrate for the rest of your life with this type of wine. It will make that journey. And it's a great idea to buy a birth. If you're born in a declared vintage, it's a great way to celebrate your birthday every year, is to open up a declared vintage. I wasn't, unfortunately. Timothy, were you born in a declared vintage?
Honestly, I'm not sure for port. So 1969.
Yeah, I was 69 too. I don't think we were declared.
Yeah, sadly.
70 was declared. So you could lie, say you were 70, but
sure. I was close. Yeah. I was in late October, so sure. Yeah.
70 adjacent.
Exactly. And
hey, Ian, how exports to the U.S. How much do we make up of port
of the pie chart?
Yeah, the pie chart, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, the Europeans drink about 3 times more quantity in gallons than we do, but we buy the expensive stuff. So
in port or wine general.
Yeah, in port category where we drink the expensive wines that they make. They make these wines for the U.S. market. Let's just put it that way, and other markets like Japan and others that will spend a good sum on the higher tier. But this is actually medicine in Europe. This is like the daily drink. If you are getting into your later years like I am. The doctor is going to tell you to drink a glass of port wine every day to improve your heart health, your blood chemistry, your digestion. Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
These
order a couple bottles.
Version of Fernet. Like we drink Fernet here. If you can swallow it, I can because I used to drink it. My chef used to make me drink it with her when she'd lock the door of the office and say, "We need to have a meeting," and that's when I started drinking.
Force Fernet on you.
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds like Fernet harassment.
Yeah, another thing though, I mean, just on that topic, another good thing about port, and it wasn't mentioned in it, but white port. White port is so interesting. And the first time I ever went to Portugal back in the 90s, I remember asking these guys that worked at this winery, I'm like, "Oh, so where do you get beer around here?" They're all, "Beer? No, we drink white port." And I was like, really? "Oh, okay, well then get me some." And here I was, became a lover of white port. And I think that's an interesting one because when you start talking about starting out a meal, you can actually chill it and it's actually quite good. And actually I will say this too.
Chilled, huh?
Yeah, the other thing too about tawny ports, and a good tip for you guys, 10-year tawny ports, extremely good, and they will last you a long time. If you serve them chilled, you've got something that becomes an aperitif too. So it's very interesting. So you can really getting to know these tawnies and especially the cohitas. I mean, that's really special that we got to taste that. But I mean, tawnies are worth investigating in much more detail.
The tawny category, like Chris was saying, you could put that in the refrigerator and just keep it there for a year. Okay. And the bottle's open and won't change at all because it's been oxidized in wood for 15 years. It's not going to move. The ruby, you have about maybe 2 weeks if you're lucky. Yeah. And probably only a week at the highest level. But at least you have a week. And if you have half a glass a day, that's 7 half glasses, you're about done with the bottle. So, it's and they do sell a lot of port wine in half bottle. It's also a very good idea.
Worst hangover I've ever had, but then I was drinking cheap port.
That and probably the other 15 drinks you drank before you got to the port category.
Who said
you don't usually start an evening off going right to port, but it's usually a big night out.
Does white port imported to the U.S.? Because I've never seen it.
Yeah, there is some. There's a few brands like Taylor, Fladgate does one, and there's a few that you'll find it. I hope that actually kind of picks up a little bit, but we'll see. But I've actually seen more than I ever have over the past 5 years. Yeah.
And if you can't find white port, you could still probably use tawny port for some of the things they use it for. It's a freaking 100 degrees over there, and you're not going to want to drink a tawny port straight. So what they do is they chill these down and use them as a cocktail, and you could do a little mixology with it. The original cocktails weren't made necessarily with spirits; they were made with wines and fortified wines like sherry and port. And white port is a good option. A really interesting cocktail is to take mint, white port, and tonic, and it's just shake it up, and it's called a mint julep or something, or port julep. That's what it's called. Port julep. And it's just a really nice, refreshing summer drink and a summer option for the category. Well, now I want to pivot on our conversation and really kind of celebrate the idea that we're drinking stuff here tonight that's 18, 17 years old. And, remember that, what was happening in 02 and 03 and what, vintage memories and, where were you and what car were you driving? Who were you married to back then versus now. Some of you, that might be the same answer, but I had a different mate back then. I lived in a different place, and I had a different job, a different world. But you know, that's what you can also connect to the vintage category is those kind of memories. And tonight we are connecting this conversation with a movie called A Perfect Vintage. And Troy is the producer of the film, and he is here, and his brother Timothy, winemaker, inspired the film. They collaborated with a ton of people in the wine business, including myself and Chris, and we got to be a piece of this beautiful documentary style film about a vintage. And Troy, I'd love for you to tell people a little bit about the film and anything you want to say.
Great. First of all, let me just make sure I'm not blasting you out audio-wise. Are we good?
So much better.
Okay, good. I don't know what happened, but clearly these headphones are super duper loud. Yes, so tonight the Sonoma Film Festival kicks off, and it's kind of an honor to have created this film. And you know, you do the festival run, and we submitted to Sonoma, and it's opening night. So if you guys have any interest, head to the Sonoma International Film Festival website, and you can watch the film anytime between now and Saturday. So back in 2012, speaking of vintages, my brother Timothy Milos, we have different last names, different dads, but I was looking for a passion project, so we decided to collaborate on a piece, and I was just going to follow a year in the life of a winemaker. And it was originally started to be about Tim, but as the project grew and we had other personalities and really bright minds in the wine world come in and play, the piece just grew. And as it turned out, lucky for me, I'll never forget the day that we had done this thing, and we had followed this, in particular, this one wine that was made in 2013, Hidden Ridge, which got 100 points from Robert Parker that Timothy made, so congratulations on that. But it's also discussing the fact that the point system is, what is the point system and what does it really mean? So it's a celebration of one of the best vintages in the last decades, so the winemakers tell me, and definitely a labor of love, and just kind of really touches on the passion and the artistry and what it takes from the people. And Elizabeth Viana, who's the winemaker at Chimney Rock, says, you know, in many ways and in a romantic sense, the people are part of the terroir. And so it's about those people who, and the place, and this beautiful wine country that we have here in Sonoma, Napa. There we go. I was wondering what I was looking at there. There it is. There's a trailer. So I'll let Tim take it from there. It's tonight. It's the world premiere tonight, and I couldn't be more excited. And thanks for having us, Ian. Look at that, a trailer. So.
I'm still muted. Look at that. So, in any event, it is less about me than it is about a life in wine and what the contribution, the passion, the decisions, the kind of the trials and travails of people in this business, and we really understand a sense of place, a sense of what it takes to make wine, any bottle of wine. And it's a lovely view at Northern California and the people who devote themselves to putting that thing in the bottle for you. So we're really.
Does anyone have audio on this?
No.
I do. It's weird.
Okay.
Yes.
I was wondering about that. You guys can't hear it?
No.
It's funny. I hear it loud and clear. It must be these super headphones again.
Yes, we can hear.
Okay.
Well, in any
It might just be for
I think
like Max or something like that. 'Cause I
so
don't get it.
yeah, in any event, a perfectvintage.com, you can see the trailer. There's links to the Sonoma International Film Festival. Again, we're playing from tonight through the weekend. I think we've put a link on Ian's page at some point for the discount code. And Troy, do you remember the code off the top of your head?
I think it's
Anyways, we'll post it again on Ian's Facebook page. But more than anything, it's a view into wine, not just about one vintage, but about vintages in general. So we certainly talk about 2013 and the life of those wines, but about wine in general.
Yeah,
Is
and
it,
winemakers. Yeah.
Is it a feature length?
Yes, it's 97 minutes, and both Chris and Ian are marvelous in it. I hadn't.
You both are in it? Wow.
Yeah, they're both in it, and Tim as well. They're all on camera. So basically, Tim and I worked on. What really happened was kind of like Ian, right? It's the whole when Ian F. Hutton speaks. Anyone old enough to remember those E.F. Hutton commercials? And I noticed it with Tim as well, when those of us who are wine enthusiasts sit and somebody with all that knowledge, or Chris, it's the same thing. Anybody who's got that thing, we all kind of want to know, we're so curious about it. So I'd go to these tastings with Tim and he'd start talking and people would be like, the E.F. Hutton thing, and it was like, oh wow, well that's interesting. So let's explore that. So we talked about it, and we would have these marvelous drives in the car, and he'd be telling me about what it was to be a winemaker and how it was, helping. Because Tim's a consulting winemaker, so he makes wines for many different brands all around Sonoma, Napa, Washington, Oregon, and uses grapes from basically all over California. But so I just started diving into that and just meeting these incredible characters, and it's just kind of a beautiful piece that explores, there's one through line that is, what is it like from prune to pour, basically, what it takes to get a good bottle of wine to the table, and everything that goes into it, and the characters behind it. So you'll see the whole process. There's a science aspect of it. So even some of the people, some of friends of David Kay's and mine, Dana Perry, you probably all know because she's in this community. She was like, oh my goodness, there's so many things that I learned that I didn't even know. And she's been doing the wine tastings and educational stuff for years. So it's kind of fun. We dive into the science and the process a bit, but it's really the heart of it is about seeing winemakers in this part of the world talk about their passions and what they do. And I'm so fortunate that 2013 turned out to be, a perfect vintage and the best vintage in so long. And so check out the film. I hope you like it.
And I would just say from my point of view too, that, they couldn't have picked a better vintage to actually talk about. We actually got everyone together the other night from like the people that were in the movie, and we were talking about it. And I said, you guys, how did you get so smart to think about this one vintage of them all? Because
I planned it, totally planned it.
To really go through it, 2010, really hurt by the sun. It just became so hot. It just like kind of ruined part of the vintage. You had to do all this kind of stuff, weird stuff as winemakers know the tricks, but you don't want to know. Number 2 would be 2011, which got rained on. That was very hard vintage. 2012 bumper crop made up for a lot of the losses in the first 2, but it wasn't the quality that the next year came to. And that 2013 was something of those wines. And I was filming it down in my cellar when we were going live, and I was down in my cellar. I'm like, oh, there's a lot of 2013 down here, you guys. Don't doubt that, because it just had it. It had everything, and it was everything you wanted in a wine. 2014, super showy. 2015, not enough of it, but very good. 2016, super showy again. 2017, hurt by sun. 2018, showy again. 2019, pretty damn good. 2020, let's not talk about that right now. But as we go, every vintage has its goods and bads, And that 13 just happened to be all goods. And that's very, very rare. And you can watch this movie and you can see it as it progresses. And I think that's an amazing thing. And the other thing I'll say, just meeting Tim, to be really honest, when you saw that aerial thing of the kooky looking vineyard that was like way from the looking down, that was all on the mountains, that's kind of where we kind of became super buds. And that was the wine that got the 100 points. And I was captivated by that vineyard the first time I saw it. And just for him to call me and say, Chris, I think you're the guy to be in this movie and talk about this wine. Can you get together with me and my brother? And do you think we could do this? I'm like, oh, whatever you need, because I'm still captivated by that vineyard. It's about as good, and it's very interesting that Ian decided on Douro to do, because it's about as Douro as you get in America. To be really honest, there's just nothing as hilly as that. And I live in Sonoma County, and this is in this hidden ridge up on the Mayacamas Mountains between Sonoma, or between Santa Rosa, Russian River, and going up and over to basically Diamond Mountain. And it's a crazy set of hillsides there that I grew up in there as a kid, but I never saw any things like that. And I never saw a vineyard that was people that were crazy enough to plant vines on that. And I think that this movie will show you exactly these little, it's a kind of a heart-wrenching movie, because there's a lot of trials and tribulations that go along with this. And you saw like one of the Mondavi girls there. She's so great, and her family did so much for this industry. But you know what? She has a labor of love too. It's not easy. Every vintage just does different things to you, and you come across it. I, as a national wine writer and a sommelier for 30 plus years, I get to see it from all sorts of views. But actually, probably my best friends out there are winemakers that I get to learn inside stuff from. And I feel like Timothy has been like one of those guys for me that's really taught me a lot about like, how's it feel to rough it, because that's what he's doing up there. But making a world-class wine is a hard job. And I want to say one thing too, going back to the ports too, those Tawny ports and everything, you have to pretty much make all those wines to taste almost identical. If you release it, like your 2010 has to taste 2010 every time. So it's a lot of science going on there. Where you have to make sure that each part tastes exactly the same, because now if you put a vintage on it, that's very different. Like we tasted that Cojita, because that had the signature of that vintage. Yeah. Now every vintage in California, if you declare it a vintage, you got to live up to what you did. It's a hard bargain, to be really honest. And I think this movie will show you exactly what you have to go through to get to that point to make a world-class wine.
Roy, you incorporated a lot of talent on the film, and there's a lot of personalities, and it covers a lot of ground. You've got some winemakers from France, from the Rhone Valley, from different parts of Napa Valley, and the one question I have for you is, did you shoot all this coverage and then bring all the photography together? Because it all flows so beautifully together, and the photography is spectacular.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it was definitely, being the passion project, it was all self-funded. So, I shot most of it myself, and had a couple people help me shoot a few things, a drone pilot who shot a bunch of stuff, although I learned how to fly the drone as well. So when you make a documentary film, I shot all of these interviews. I had questions that would lead the people speaking down a path, but I have obviously zero control over what you guys say or how you answer the questions. So then as a documentarian, you go in the edit bay, and before you paint it with any colors, you create the spine. And so I just had to cut a story together out of the interviews. And oftentimes you see documentarians use their own voice or do narration or whatever, and I decided not to use me at all and just let you guys ping pong these ideas, because Tim will tell you about an experience that he had watching the film with Angelina Mondavi, and I'm going to let him tell you that a couple things that happened. So it was really about the story, and then shooting the stuff to illustrate it, and then painting it after the fact. But Tim, talk about your experience with regard to that.
Sure. There's this moment for every winemaker out in the vineyard about walking through and tasting fruit at harvest, and it is essentially it's a solitary, private experience. You're going out, you're tasting fruit, and often for winemakers, I think everybody I talk to in my colleagues, there's this point we think, did we forget what ripe fruit tastes like? Why am I not getting the thing that I'm looking for? What is it I'm even looking for? And it's been a year. What should this thing be? And then the moment happens, the fruit turns a corner, the flavors have evolved, and it's there. And so Troy has on film me walking through a Cabernet vineyard at harvest, saying, "There it is," and completely separately, without anything, he's filming Angelina walk through a vineyard, and she has that same sort of like visceral response to it being just right, and it's time for harvest. So that experience of knowing when to happen, I mean, it is a trained, but it's a visceral, organic experience, and to see that in somebody else's recognition of, oh my God, it's the same thing. She's having the same experience walking a field. And I because of the way we shot this and from the project, I would help set up some of the interviews, but then I would never be there because we always wanted each person to give a unguarded, unmitigated sort of answer to Troy without any, interaction with another winemaker. You want to hear them talk about what that experience is, and to have that just come raw from Angelina without prompting, and to have that exact same experience, it's very validating as a professional. That is the experience. That is exactly the experience.
Well, and it was beyond, just to add to that, it was beyond just the experience. They said the same things. The words that came out of their mouth were the exact same things. So I was, and I had fun because with all these people, brilliant wine minds talking about the same stuff. I was able to just ping pong these concepts back and forth between all of them, and it's all congruent, and it's really fun. And the other thing too, it breathes, because one of the glorious things about doing this picture was being able to be up here with my brother and his family. I'm from the Bay Area originally, so it was a great excuse to come up and drink some really good wine and hang out with some really fun people and do the thing. But it was just, I'm tickled that people are watching it right now, and the people that were involved, including you guys, Christopher and Ian. Thank you so much for doing it. You guys are just great in the film, and I can actually sound like I know so much about wine these days because I can quote them all really well. I'll do Ian. There's this wet stone notion. And I'll do Tim. Wine, it's the generator of conviviality. I've got them all. Chris, he's like
generator of conviviality.
Yeah, and Chris Sawyer, he's like, the wines, the grapes up there on Hidden Ridge, they've got some attitude. They're a little pissed. I've got them all down. Anyway, descriptors.
Yeah,
so check it out.
Our good looks you need too. So.
Yeah, so I'd love it if you guys would check it out and holler at me and let me know what you thought.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Before you do that, Barbara, I did paste into the chat box some stuff, and Troy, I hope I pasted the right stuff. If you'd look at it, because I cut stuff from your email.
Yeah, it looks right. It's the eventive, and you can go to the Sonoma Film Festival and check that out. But hopefully you've got the discount code. Yeah, there it is. SIF APVTC. There's a couple bucks off watching just the film, which if you buy, you can watch anytime between now and Saturday, or there's another discount code for the entire festival if you want to do that, because there are some nice films in it. De Niro's got a film, and Judi Dench has a film, so there's some, Morgan Freeman, some big films. So it's an honor to be accepted into this film festival, but what an amazing honor to have it be Sonoma Film Festival. Couldn't be better.
You've already won some major awards for the film, so congratulations, man.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and
thank you.
I also want to say, Troy taped me many years ago. So I have done. I'm kind of famous for doing so many TV shows that never got made, and pilots about wine. There was a wine network years ago. I did maybe 100 hours of stuff and I never any of it got made. The only time I've ever been in a film was Sour Grapes.
Well, it's true that it takes, you know how much it takes to get a great bottle of wine, as I said earlier, to the table, and to do a film, it's the same thing. It's, there are in Los Angeles, a lot of filmmakers and a lot of producers, but the number of people who've actually finished one, I mean, it goes from a lot of people down to a few people. So it's an amazing thing to be saying, wow, this actually happened. We did that. So, oh my goodness. And I actually felt that pressure, Ian, because it's been in a constant state of it'll be done in 2 weeks for about 3 years. So it's real. Yeah, I feel great that for all the people who invested their time and energy, because I've worked on some of those projects as well, where there's people who've come together to do something and it never makes it anywhere and it's sitting on a hard drive. So it's good to have it out there. And I'm really curious to see the response of this community, because the Napa Sonoma, winemaking community is really incredibly.
It's your audience.
Yeah, well, it is the audience, but it's it's a big family of people up here doing the same thing. So I can't wait to hear what they have to say. Hopefully they dig it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that from my point too, I mean, just like Ian, I mean, I've been in a lot of films and things that have they ended up cutting me out or whatever, or they just never made it. But to get the call from Timothy, like, oh no, it's actually been made, and you're going. And it actually was almost weirder than that. Where you might have told me first, but because I'm in charge of the wines at the Sonoma International Film Festival, and my wine competition's coming up, Ian, hint, wink, wink, in a couple weeks. We'll talk. But we're gonna, because of last year's. Think about this, you guys. I do about at least 12 to, I'd put it at 17, probably max, wine competitions per year. Ian and I usually judge the San Francisco International together, and I miss you, brother, and we got to get back together this year. But the fact is that this is one of those small wine competitions that is the only wine competition done for a film festival. And where else that Sonoma? I mean, it's way before the Napa Valley Film Festival started. It started in Sonoma. The same people that started the Napa one came from Sonoma. But it's always been wine in Sonoma. There was wine before there was movies. Let's just put it that way. And the fact is that we having it kind of premiere there and this big reception of it. Last year, our competition, I did the judging on Friday the 13th of March. What date was that? 2 days before the lockdown.
Yeah.
But that was the 5th competition I did. So to start the year, it was the last one I did until I believe June or maybe May. But the fact was we got the readings from that. And because this film festival was able to go, well, we could just say there's no film festival, or we could do it virtually and allow people to watch it in the comforts of their own home and to really do it. Then we were able to blast off the winners and everything. So we're going to be doing that again with these winners from this competition. It's April 24th, that showing of the movie on April 24th. So, but they got it. We got it handed to us right there. Like, nice competition. You're the last one for the year as far as we know. And how it worked out, it was a great thing. And it just happened to be the Sonoma International Film Festival.
Barbara, I'm not going to cut you off this time. Go ahead.
Well, I have several questions, but
okay. Well, you're going to have to wait 1 second because we're going to run out of time. Okay. But I want to make sure that everybody knows that this film festival only goes for 4 days, and so the opportunity to see this film is for 4 days. And you want to make sure you get in there and see it, because if a mega person doesn't pay Troy off big bucks and he's not able to book his Virgin Galactic flight with Richard Branson, then this film, you're not going to be able to see it.
Oh, yeah,
so,
it'll get picked up.
Yeah,
anyhow, on Chris's side on the Sonoma International Film Festival, I had a film that premiered there a couple years ago, and my heart breaks for you because it is so much fun. They roll out the red carpet for the big, small, everybody in between. Chris makes sure there are fantastic wines. It was 3 days of the most fun, and congratulations. And the other part of it, I wanted to ask you distributions. I wanted to tell you also that I'm doing my first doc that just completed on the fires.
Oh, wow.
So I would love to send it to you and get your opinion. It's 17, 19, and 20. So, and I did a short form doc because I know what the competition is in features. So I'm very excited for you. Are you in LA?
Yeah, they won some LA competition.
Yeah, maybe Ian can give me your information. But anyhow, I would be thrilled if my wine movie premiered at Sonoma International Film Festival. So congratulations.
Thank you so much. Yeah, there's a little story I told. We did a Zoom earlier, and I actually was up here and I shot a bunch of the fire stuff, and I had planned on doing after the vintage during the credits, where are they now, and talking about some of the estates that were no longer in business, and some of the stuff that happened because of the fires. But the piece is such a happy, warm thing, and 13 being so incredibly beautiful that I didn't want to dampen that with the fire stuff. So good luck with that, because that's the story that definitely needs to be told.
Yeah, mine's kind of a downer piece, but it's also about climate change, and a lot of vintners are addressing that now. So I think, and but I'd love to show it to you, and
sure,
and then maybe I'll get into some good film festivals. But congratulations! I look forward to meeting you sometime, Timothy.
Indeed.
And,
look forward to
Chris, it's pretty cool. It's pretty darn cool. I will watch it this weekend. And
beautiful. And if you all watch it, make sure you vote too, because there's cash prizes for audience awards. Is that shameless?
I bet
shameless
you
plug.
it gets my vote. Yeah, I just.
Okay, good.
I want to know when the wine stuff is too, Chris. Also.
I gotta cut you off real quick, Barbara, because we gotta end here. But
darn it!
I would love for you guys to connect after. And Troy, I would love to make sure I get everybody the right information. And if there's a link straight to the vote button that people could get to, let me know what that is too. We'll send it out to everybody.
I think it pops up like after you watch the film, you have an opportunity to vote. But I've never done it myself, so I don't really know.
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us on this adventure tonight.
Bravo.
We do love pulling these fun things together, and just so it goes, we didn't put the port first or the movie first and then the port tasting. We had the port tasting on the calendar, and then he said it was on the movie premiered on the 24th. I said I think it's a wonderful marriage of concepts, and I'm glad it worked out.
Did you press some DVDs? You could sell them.
Yeah, we could try. We could sell them.
I want mine signed by everybody.
Oh yeah, and some of you got a little piece of chocolate. That's from Mila Chocolate. And if we ran out of chocolate, we tried to send you something else. So hopefully you got that. But Mila is one of the best chocolatiers in LA. Give that thing a try, Chris. That thing is magic, especially with.
I will. Don't worry
ruby.
about that. I will.
That ruby, with that chocolate, it's filled with a passion fruit puree, which is pretty intense.
Wow, passion fruit.
Lydia, did you get chocolate? Did we get chocolate to you? Okay, good. David K, did we get some chocolate to you guys?
Yes, it went beautifully with the port.
Okay, good. And if you didn't get chocolate, I apologize. It wasn't personal.
Hey, Troy, quick question. Those of you who haven't seen the movie yet, how many takes for the cork?
Well, so we were setting up the cork, and my buddy Tom, I had practiced it, so I knew it was doable. And I'm setting up the camera, and he goes, I'm just going to practice a few. And so there's a moment in the film, you'll see it, where there's a thing that happens with the cork. David, it happened he's dropped it the first time, and it stuck it, but the camera wasn't rolling. I was like, about 35 after that.
You did that. That's pretty good.
About 35, yeah. But yeah, you'll see. So we shot this cork bounce in super slow-mo, but always, I say, well, let's just rehearse it. Doing perfect first time. Okay, would have been good to be set up, but
don't leave your best shots in the driving range, right?
Yes, exactly.
Right. Well, I thank you guys for this drive tonight. We look forward to seeing you soon. We're going to be together on Saturday talking about Mencia and Bursko. So please come and we got a bunch of experts joining us on that occasion. And then we got some really fun new programs on the calendar. Zoom into Wine for next month. Every Wednesday, every Saturday. And if you cannot join us, I try to make sure we post these things on Facebook. So you'll find those at Wine LA. And you'll find this there as well. And then if you do join us, I send out a little gift bag, which I'll be sending everybody tonight, a little email gift bag. I will send the links to the film. I will send the discount codes. I will send this video and some special wine offers. So we really try to pack your experience here with value. The wines that you tried tonight are available for sale. There are only a few bottles of each if you want to partake in those. We do deliver in Los Angeles for free. And then it's $10 delivery in California. Ohio is $1,000 to get to Ohio. Sorry about that, Kent. And I think Balin turned into an elephant. Oh, Balin, you're back. How you doing, buddy? You good?
Yeah, well, thanks, man.
Good, man. Good. I saw the elephant. I said, "That's our time clock." That was my exit. I was like, "When Balin turns into an elephant, we got to go."
Who are you calling Dumbo? Hey guys, we got to step off because we got another one to jump to. But thank you all. Nice to meet you all. Ian, Christopher, David, Maria, all you guys. Nice to meet you who we haven't met. And Ian, thank you so much.
Thanks, Ian.
Anytime, man. Thanks for including me in the film.
Absolutely.
You guys killed it.
Good luck, Troy.
Loved it.
Good. Thanks all.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.